Hello everyone, welcome to another course of Agitation and Propaganda. Today we're going to be discussing active measures. So what are active measures? Active measures are something that is bewildering on the fact that they are not being taught in US high schools, or that probably most of you have never heard about them. And it's bewildering because they were used en masse against the United States during the Cold War by the Soviets. KGB Major General Oleg Kalugin, former head of the Foreign Counterintelligence for the KGB, which died in 1979, described active measures as, quote-unquote, the heart and soul of Soviet intelligence. Not intelligence collection, but subversion. Active measures to weaken the West, to drive wedges in the Western community, alliances of all sorts, particularly that of NATO, to sow discord among allies, to weaken the United States in the eyes of the people of Europe, Asia, Africa, Latin America, and thus to prepare grounds in the case of the Cold War having exploded into an actual direct conflict. So the active measures was a system of special courses taught in the Andropov Institute of the KGB, situated at SVR headquarters near Moscow. The head of the active measure department was Yuri Bodin, former controller of the Cambridge 5 spy ring. So while the people in the West were being treated with very interesting movies like James Bond and very romanticized versions of what a spy is, in reality, this is what spies actually dealt with. This is what the KGB dealt with. And I'm going to read to you a very interesting quote, and you get to tell me if it resonates with anything you see on the news today. In the view of the Russians, words and the exact meaning they convey matter more than in Western countries, where the importance of this notion is still taken lightly or even dismissed. Whence the success of the Russian in inhibiting the Western society with the concept of political correctness, essentially based on a new meaning given to words and on the power that can be derived from those alterations. To put the latter explanation otherwise, how to cripple a nation by altering the meaning of its own language and by closely associating violence to as many of its words as possible. In other words, to poison words. The process is invisible because it does not consist in creating new words, carrying in themselves influence, but in altering instead the meaning of the words that already exist by converting nouns into adjectives, or the reverse as most frequent example. Thus, it is possible indeed to sow discord that seems to erupt and grow naturally within a nation, while the unenlightened observer will perceive the process as a society that self-destructs entirely by its own. This is a quote from the book called The French Spy Machine, which you can purchase on Amazon if you so want. Allow me to give you an example of how this operates in reality. Let's look at the definition of the word fascism that's being thrown around quite often now in the media. According to the Webster definition, fascism is a totalitarian governmental system led by a dictator and emphasizing an aggressive nationalism, militarism, and often racist state. However, the same word, fascism, according to Marxists, means the fight against fascism is only won when the capitalist system had been shattered and a classless society had been achieved. This is according to the German Antifa group Antifaschistischer Aufbau München. So notice how the same word can have two different meanings. While most people in a country would despise the idea of losing their freedoms and living under a totalitarian government system, which is led by a dictator and emphasizes aggressive nationalism, militarism, and often racist tendencies, the very same people probably enjoy living under a capitalist nation where they can sell their labor and be able to own private property. However, when they hear in the media that someone is against fascism, most people are going to think that the media is talking about the first definition, when the actual person can be very well talking about the Marxist definition. This game of changing definition works in favor of the Marxists, as even though they manage to hold a very fringe view that the overwhelming amount of people would disagree with, by changing the definition they can project numbers that they normally wouldn't have. By organizing an activity against fascism, they will lure people that believe they are using the definition of a totalitarian government when they're actually trying to take down capitalism. These people are useful idiots. It is not an insult, but a technical term to describe a political agitator who thinks that they are fighting for a cause, while in reality they are pushing for a different cause altogether, which they might not be aware of. The Soviet Union was immune to this tactic of changing definition, because the state apparatus had absolutely control over the mainstream media as well as academia, and it would make sure that the definition do not change unless the parties wanted to change. Meanwhile, in the Western world, freedoms and liberties are a double-edged blade. They come with great advances in human rights, but they also come with the danger of having foreign nations and infiltrators being able to use such tactics. Because of this, educating the population and making them aware of these tactics is of pivotal importance if the nations are to remain democratic and people are to enjoy their freedoms for longer. I will now play you a small video that you probably already know from Yuri Bezmenov. He is a KGB defector, which in the 70s managed to get into the United States. The video that I'm going to show you is from the 80s, and I want you to pay attention and notice how many similarities Yuri Bezmenov is talking about to how many similarities we can see happening in the West today. Take into account that this person was higher up in the KGB, which would be the equivalent of the CIA in the United States.
The useful idiots, the leftists who are idealistically believing in the beauty of Soviet socialist or communist or whatever system, when they get disillusioned, they become the worst enemies. That's why my KGB instructors specifically made the point, never bother with leftists. Forget about these political prostitutes. Aim higher. This was my instruction. Try to get into large circulation, established conservative media. Rich, filthy rich movie makers, intellectuals, so-called academic circles, cynical, egocentric people who can look into your eyes with angelic expression and tell you a lie. These are the most recruitable people, people who lack moral principles, who are either too greedy or too suffer from self-importance. They feel that they matter a lot. These are the people who KGB wanted very much to recruit.
But to eliminate the others, to execute the others, don't they serve some purpose? Wouldn't they be the ones they rely on?
They serve purpose only at the stage of destabilization of a nation. For example, your leftists in United States, all these professors and all these beautiful civil rights defenders, they are instrumental in the process of the subversion only to destabilize the nation. When their job is completed, they are not needed anymore. They know too much. Some of them, when they get disillusioned, when they see that Marxist-Leninists come to power, obviously they get offended. They think that they will come to power. That will never happen, of course. They will be lined up against the wall and shot.
I take responsibility.
He's narrow-minded, egocentrical idiot who tries to earn his own popularity through participation in propaganda farces like this.
It is time to take responsibility. Call out hate, step up, and take action.
The highest art of warfare is not to fight at all, but to subvert anything of value in your enemy's country, be it moral traditions, religion, respect to your authority and leaders, cultural traditions, anything. Put white against black, old against young, I don't know, wealthy against poor, and so on. Doesn't matter. As long as it disturbs society, as long as it cuts the moral fiber of a nation, it's good. And then you just take this country. When everything is subverted, when the country is disoriented and confused, when it is demoralized and then destabilized, then the crisis will come.